All right, let's talk about something that's been messing with people's heads for centuries: mass psychosis. It's one of those things that sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's when an entire society loses touch with reality, falling into a state of collective madness. You've probably seen it happen before, maybe not in the extreme ways history has shown us, but in small, everyday moments when people believe things that make no sense, just because everyone else does. This isn't some wild conspiracy theory, it's a real psychological phenomenon that's played out over and over. Think about the witch hunts in the 1600s. Perfectly normal people became convinced that their neighbors were casting spells and summoning the devil. They didn't need proof, just fear. Or take the rise of totalitarian regimes in the 20th century. Entire nations got swept up in mass hysteria, following leaders who promised safety but delivered oppression. The scary part? This isn't just history, it's happening right now. The tools may have changed: social media, endless news cycles, algorithms that decide what you see, but the process is the same. Fear spreads, people panic, and suddenly the truth doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what feels true, and that's a dangerous place to be. So let's break this down. How does mass psychosis start? Why do people fall for it? And most importantly, how can you make sure it doesn't happen to you? So, what exactly is mass psychosis? In simple terms, it's when large groups of people start believing in things that aren't real. Not because of logic, but because of fear, manipulation, or social pressure. It's not just one or two people losing their grip on reality. It's whole communities, nations, or even the entire world slipping into a shared delusion. This matters today more than ever. We like to think we're smarter than people in the past, that we wouldn't fall for the same traps. But mass psychosis doesn't care how educated you are. It works by triggering emotions, especially fear. Because once you're scared, you're not thinking critically anymore, you're just reacting. Look at how fast misinformation spreads today. A fake story goes viral, and within hours, millions believe it, without checking facts. Or consider how quickly people turn against each other during times of crisis. When emotions run high, people stop questioning authority, and those in power can use that to control the masses. It's not a new trick, it's just easier now thanks to technology. The big danger? Once a mass psychosis takes hold, it's almost impossible to snap people out of it. If everyone around you believes a lie, you start to doubt yourself. Even if the truth is right in front of you, standing against the crowd feels too risky. That's why understanding mass psychosis is crucial. It helps you see the warning signs before it's too late. So now that we know what it is, let's look at how it's played out in history. Because if we don't learn from the past, we're doomed to repeat it. History is packed with examples of entire societies losing their grip on reality. When people look back, they often ask, how did they fall for that? But at the time, it felt completely normal to those involved. That's the scary part. When mass psychosis takes over, it doesn't feel like madness. It feels like truth. Take the witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries. In places like Europe and colonial America, people were so convinced that witches lived among them that they executed thousands, mostly women. The accusations were absurd. Crops failed, someone got sick, a cow stopped giving milk, must be witchcraft. Fear spread like wildfire, and once the panic set in, logic didn't stand a chance. Or look at Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Millions of people bought into the idea that certain groups were responsible for their struggles. Propaganda painted entire populations as enemies, and suddenly acts that would have been unthinkable in normal times became necessary in the eyes of the masses. That's how mass psychosis works. It warps moral judgment and convinces ordinary people to do terrible things. And then there's the rise of totalitarianism in the Soviet Union, China, and other regimes. In these societies, people weren't just manipulated into believing lies, they were forced to. Fear of punishment kept them in line, and eventually many convinced themselves that the propaganda was true, because admitting otherwise meant facing terrifying consequences. These historical events aren't just stories, they are warnings. They show us what happens when fear and manipulation override critical thinking. And if you think this kind of thing can't happen today, you're already at risk of falling for it. Because the truth is, mass psychosis never really goes away. It just changes form. So how does it actually happen? What pushes people over the edge from skepticism to total delusion? That's what we'll break down next. So how does mass psychosis actually take hold? What makes a person, let alone an entire population, lose touch with reality? The answer lies in fear, isolation, and psychological conditioning. First, fear weakens critical thinking. When people are afraid, their brains shift into survival mode. Logic takes a backseat to instinct, and emotions drive decisions. In this state, people don't question what they're told. They just look for safety. If an authority figure presents a simple solution, the enemy is to blame, or just follow our rules and you'll be safe, people latch onto it. It doesn't have to be true, it just has to make them feel less afraid. Second, isolation makes people more vulnerable. When people are cut off from normal social interactions, they lose their ability to compare thoughts with others. A lone person is much easier to manipulate than a group of independent thinkers. That's why totalitarian regimes always try to control speech, shut down dissent, and keep people from gathering freely. When you're alone, you have no outside perspective to challenge what you're being told. Then there's conditioning through repetition. If you hear something often enough, especially from multiple sources, you start believing it, even if it makes no sense. This is how propaganda works. Repeat a lie long enough and it starts feeling like reality. The more emotionally charged the message, the stronger the effect. Mass psychosis doesn't just happen overnight. It's a slow, steady process of breaking people down through fear, confusion, and exhaustion until they accept the narrative they're being fed. They don't even realize they've stopped thinking for themselves. But fear and isolation aren't enough on their own. There's another major tool that speeds up mass psychosis: propaganda and censorship. Let's look at how that works next. Fear might push people toward mass psychosis, but propaganda and censorship keep them there. Once a society is primed for manipulation, those in power can shape reality itself, controlling what people believe, how they think, and even what they feel is acceptable to say out loud. The power of repetition. Propaganda works by repeating the same messages over and over until they feel like truth. If a government or media outlet tells you every day that a certain group is dangerous, or that a crisis is worse than it actually is, you eventually believe it, even if there's no solid evidence. Your brain takes shortcuts. I keep hearing this, so it must be true. Even smart, rational people fall for it. Studies have shown that repeated exposure to the same idea increases belief in it, even when people know it's false. The mind craves patterns, and propaganda exploits that. Confusion weakens resistance. It's not just about spreading a single message, it's also about creating chaos. When people are bombarded with conflicting reports, constantly changing official narratives, and outright contradictions, they get mentally exhausted. Instead of questioning the system, they give up and accept whatever they're told. Ever notice how major events often come with a flood of different explanations? One day, something is a conspiracy theory. The next day, it's an accepted fact. People who question the official story are first ridiculed. Then, when their doubts are proven right, the media quietly changes the narrative. This creates distrust in independent thinking, making people more likely to just go along with whatever the dominant voices say. Censorship eliminates dissent. The final step is silencing opposing views. If the ruling class can't convince everyone, they can at least make sure alternative voices aren't heard. Censorship ensures that only one narrative exists. In extreme cases, people are punished for even questioning the official truth. This isn't just about removing posts online, it's about social pressure. If disagreeing with the mainstream gets you labeled as dangerous, crazy, or even criminal, most people won't speak up. They'll comply just to avoid trouble. This makes mass psychosis even stronger because now people aren't just believing a lie, they're helping enforce it. At this point, a society is fully trapped. Fear has done its job. Propaganda has shaped minds, and censorship has erased resistance. But how does this apply today? Let's look at modern threats that are accelerating mass psychosis like never before. Mass psychosis isn't just some relic of the past. It's happening right now, just with different tools. Instead of burning witches or blindly following dictators, people today are being manipulated through technology, media, and political influence. The methods are more sophisticated, but the goal is the same: control the way people think. Smartphones and social media, the ultimate mind control tools. Never before in history have people been so plugged into a constant stream of information. Every time you open your phone, you're hit with news, opinions, and trends. Most of it curated to push a certain narrative. Social media platforms don't just show you what's trending, they decide what trends. Algorithms are designed to amplify fear, outrage, and division because that's what keeps people engaged. Ever wonder why certain topics dominate the conversation while others disappear? It's not random, it's controlled. The more people scroll, the deeper they fall into an information loop that reinforces the same ideas over and over until they believe them completely. Mainstream media and manufactured panic. Modern media isn't about informing, it's about persuading. News cycles are designed to keep people in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. Every few months, there's a new crisis, a new villain, a new disaster that you absolutely have to panic about. When people are scared, they stop thinking clearly. They don't question authority, and they don't look for real solutions. Instead, they follow orders, hoping someone will save them. Governments and corporations know this, which is why they never let the fear die down. As soon as one crisis fades, a new one takes its place. Censorship and the death of free thought. In today's world, it's not enough to control what people believe. You also have to eliminate anyone who questions it. Tech companies, governments, and media giants work together to shut down dissenting voices, labeling them as dangerous, misinformed, or extremist. The internet was supposed to make information free, but now it's being used to do the opposite. Fact-checkers decide what's true, accounts get banned for saying the wrong thing, and even private conversations aren't safe for monitoring. This creates a culture of fear where people censor themselves just to avoid backlash. The result? A society where most people don't think for themselves anymore. They repeat what they're told, follow trends without question, and attack anyone who steps out of line. That's how modern mass psychosis spreads, not through force, but through constant psychological pressure. The question is, how do you break free from it? That's what we'll cover next. So, how do you avoid falling into mass psychosis when everything around you is pushing for conformity? The good news is, you can resist. Bad news? It takes effort. It's easier to go with the flow, believe what you're told, and avoid standing out. But if you care about your mental freedom, here's what you need to do. Stop letting fear control you. Mass psychosis thrives on fear. The more afraid you are, the easier you are to manipulate. So, whenever you feel that sense of panic, ask yourself, who benefits from my fear? Am I being pushed to react emotionally instead of thinking logically? What happens if I refuse to panic? Most of the time, fear is a tool being used against you. Recognize that and you weaken its power over your mind. Control your own information diet. You wouldn't eat food from a trash can, so why would you consume mental garbage from biased media, social media, or manipulated search results? If you only hear one side of a story, you're not informed. You're programmed. Diversify your sources. Read from different perspectives. Turn off the 24/7 news cycle. It's designed to keep you anxious. Take breaks from social media. Don't let algorithms control your emotions. Be intentional about what enters your mind. Garbage in, garbage out. Think for yourself, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Independent thought is your strongest defense. That means questioning even the things that feel good to believe. Ask yourself, do I believe this because it's true or because it's popular? Would I still believe this if the entire world disagreed? Is there actual proof or just emotion and repetition? A free thinker doesn't just resist propaganda from the other side. They challenge everything, including their own biases. Surround yourself with critical thinkers. Mass psychosis spreads when people feel isolated. Find others who think for themselves, who challenge ideas and who refuse to just go along with the crowd. Talk to them. Debate with them. Keep each other mentally sharp. If you're surrounded by people who attack you for questioning things, find a new circle. Blind followers won't wake up unless someone shakes them. That someone could be you. Defend free speech, even for ideas you hate. The moment you start supporting censorship, you've lost. The only way to guarantee your own freedom is to protect everyone's right to speak. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like them. But the second you let someone else decide what's allowed to be said, you've given up control of your own mind. Mass psychosis only wins if people stay silent. Speak up, stay sharp, and refuse to let fear or propaganda make your decisions for you. Next, we'll look at how societies, not just individuals, can fight back. Resisting mass psychosis isn't just an individual effort. It has to happen on a societal level, too. When entire communities, countries, or even the world start slipping into collective madness, breaking free takes action from people willing to stand up and push back. Spread the truth, loudly and relentlessly. The only way to break mass psychosis is by challenging the delusion. Again and again, no matter how much pushback you get. That means sharing real, verifiable information, even when it's unpopular. Questioning the narrative out loud. Don't just sit back and watch it unfold. Encouraging others to think critically, even when it's uncomfortable. Mass psychosis depends on people blindly accepting lies. The more truth that gets out there, the weaker the psychosis becomes. Use humor and ridicule. Fear-based control falls apart when people stop taking it seriously. That's why humor is one of the most powerful weapons against authoritarianism. Dictators, propagandists, and manipulators hate being mocked because ridicule destroys their power. History proves this. From underground comedians mocking oppressive regimes to internet memes exposing hypocrisy, laughter has always been a tool for rebellion. So use it. Mock the absurdity. Laugh at the fear-mongering. Expose the nonsense for what it is. Build parallel structures. If a society is too far gone, the best way to fight back is to create something outside of it. Czech dissident Václav Havel called these parallel structures. Independent institutions, businesses, communities, and media that exist outside of the controlled system. Examples include independent news sources that aren't run by governments or corporations, alternative social platforms that don't censor speech, local economies that don't depend on centralized control, strong personal communities that resist division and propaganda. The more people participate in these parallel structures, the less power mass psychosis has over them. Eventually, these alternatives can grow stronger than the corrupted system itself. Stop rewarding obedience. Mass psychosis thrives because people comply out of fear. But what if more people simply refuse to go along? What if blind obedience was no longer the easiest option? Encourage those around you to think for themselves, even when it's inconvenient. Refuse to participate in lies even when pressured. Support businesses, media, and leaders that promote free thought. The more people push back, the harder it becomes for mass psychosis to take full control. Resistance isn't about violence or chaos, it's about holding the line against manipulation. A society that allows itself to be ruled by fear, propaganda, and censorship will collapse. But one that values independent thought, courage, and truth can withstand even the strongest attempts at mass psychosis. The only question is, will enough people wake up in time? Next, let's end with a strong message about why mental independence is worth fighting for. At the end of the day, mental independence is everything. If you let someone else control your thoughts, emotions, and decisions, then you're not really free, no matter how much freedom you think you have. Mass psychosis thrives when people stop thinking for themselves, when they trade truth for comfort, when they accept lies to avoid conflict, and when they silence themselves out of fear. That's how entire societies fall into madness. That's how history repeats itself. Why this fight matters. Some people think resisting mass psychosis is pointless, that one person can't make a difference. But that's exactly what the manipulators want you to believe. The truth is, every movement, every revolution, every major change in history started with individuals who refused to comply. It only takes a handful of people to disrupt the system, to wake others up, and to force the tide to turn. Imagine if more people had spoken up sooner during past historical tragedies. If more people had resisted the lies before they spread, if more people had stood their ground when it mattered most. The world doesn't need more blind followers. It needs more people who can think, question, and challenge. How to stay mentally free. Always ask who benefits. Every time you're told to believe something, think about who gains power from it. Refuse to be ruled by fear. The second fear takes over, manipulation becomes easy. Train yourself to stay calm and question everything. Protect free speech, even speech you dislike. Once censorship begins, it never stops. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Dig deeper, ask questions, and look for real answers. Encourage others to think. Don't just protect your own mind. Help others break free too. The goal isn't to win against mass psychosis. The goal is to never let it take hold in the first place. To build a society where truth is valued over fear, where independent thought is the norm, and where no one has to be afraid of questioning authority. Will you be the one who stands? Mass psychosis only succeeds when people let it. It can be stopped, reversed, and prevented, but only if enough people choose to resist. So ask yourself, will you think for yourself when it's easier to follow? Will you speak the truth when silence feels safer? Will you hold the line when fear is used to control you? Because if enough people answer yes, then mass psychosis doesn't stand a chance. The real question isn't, can we stop it? It's, will we?